Hello, everybody. It is the August 26th Working Group LTS meeting. We just have one thing on the agenda, which is looking at the updated version of the proposal for community security patches for old end-of-life Kubernetes minor versions. So I will hand it off to Rita, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Thank you. So it's been about a month since we last talked about this particular proposal, soliciting feedback. I think some of the feedback were basically like having these patches persisted after the embargo is lifted is okay, but not as useful. So there were some feedback around if we had these patches during the embargo period is actually way more useful. So I basically updated the doc to reflect that. As you can see, if you click on non-goals, we used to have extending embargo CV patches to include out of support versions, and that is explicitly removed since that is exactly the diff from the last round. And basically, I've updated the uh, if you can scroll down a bit, the workflow. I basically updated the workflow to reflect this, which basically says, hey, we start with the CVE, and then the SR. Sorry, do you mind just moving down a bit? Thank you. We start with the CVE, and then SRC will coordinate the patch like we always do. But in addition to the supported versions, it would also include three EOL versions, right? So if the version is out of support, we will ask like, hey, is this less than 12 months? And if it is, then the fixer will create the patches for both the supported, for the old end of life releases, right? And then the SRC follow standard embargo process. Um, and then when embargo is lifted, SRC will push a new PR with the patch files from the embargo period and put it in that folder in the new security patches repo, like we discussed last time. So the difference here is the fixer, the original maintainer who actually dealt with the patch would actually be nudged to work on a patch for three versions of the end of life Kubernetes releases. And once it's lifted, then the SRC would actually be the one that's pushing the PR and requesting the fixer to review, right? And once all that is done, then that patch PR will be merged in this new repository, and then everything else is pretty much the same as we discussed before, right? So that's pretty much the gist of the change. And any feedback, concerns?
Um, for CVE fixes that we don't fix under embargo, um,
Mhm.
we prepare patches for the in support miners just sort of in the open, like as regular GitHub
Yeah.
PRs. Would we be, whether it's under embargo and done in the private repo,
Right.
or done in the open for like low or medium severity things,
Mhm.
would we still sort of have a request, like if possible,
Yeah.
does this apply cleanly to the old recent EOL versions? Can we publish the patches? I thought we would encourage that or accept that, whether we did it under embargo or if we did it in
Mhm.
open. So it might be
I
worth clarifying that.
yeah, I can update that.
So, and I think the goal was any CVE against Kubernetes code that we are reporting and fixing, we will, I guess, request, encourage the fixer to like see if this applies cleanly. If it doesn't, would you mind like resolving
Yeah.
the conflict? And we'll accept it into this repo.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you mind adding a comment here so I can
Sure.
follow up?
One question I had, because like we're sort of depending on the fixer's ability, goodwill, willingness, like it's very possible that the fixer is like, actually, I don't have time. Like I can fix it against the current releases, but I don't have time to do it against the EOL ones, and it's not a priority for me in my scenario. Like what would we do in that case? Would we sort of solicit help from other people on the distributors list or other people like in the community to say like there's no backports to old EOL versions available, but if someone wants to do it, we'll accept it. Like what do we do in that scenario? So that's another question.
Okay. Um,
I will add both of my comments. I can't. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll add both of those as questions.
I think in that case, um, in that case, we would kind of use the how we had it before, which was volunteers, I guess. Community contributors basically, right? Like so they could open up the APR to that repo.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable. Maybe just thinking about mechanically how we would do that. Like if this is an embargo issue, then when we announce to the distributors list, we say, here's the patches for the in-support releases, here's the patches for the EOL releases. And if we don't have patches for the EOL releases, then we say, we don't have patches. If you want to contribute them, email here or like what, yeah, just
Okay.
updating the templates so that it's a mechanical process. If we have them, drop them in here. If we don't have them, solicit them this way.
Makes sense.
So if we're asking that question to the embargo list, we obviously trust those people. If we're asking that question later, do we have any kind of, would the vetting process for said patches be, they have to already be a known good contributor, or is somebody going to make sure that we're not merging in some exciting CVEs that pretend to be a patch?
I mean, review of we always have to review the patches. If it's like done by the same person that did the original fix,
Mhm.
then I think
Well, we
it's
trust
there's
that probably.
less strict scrutiny, but we're always doing a review. There should always be at least some cursory inspection of like, yeah, this is the same fix that we did in a supported branch, just deconflicted. And if it's a different contributor, then we need closer review of that to make sure it's consistent with what we fixed in supported branches and not buggy or malicious in some other way.
I was going to ask who are in the owner's file for this repo? Is that SRC or is that broader? Because those are the folks that would be reviewing.
I think the expectation was SRC, and they are pulling in area owners as needed.
I think
Like they're
now
the
we're
one coordinating, right?
I think that will reduce the churn on other people.
Yeah.
And then the reviews will be at the discretion of the SRC member.
Yeah. This is where the
Okay.
distinction between like LGTM and approve is really helpful. Like SRC has approve. If they don't have expertise on a particular patch, like maybe it got rewritten going back one version, so they're like, this patch looks really different than that patch, but maybe that's necessary because this branch was older and really different. Like they can delegate review of the specifics to like an area owner and say, can storage leads review this? Once storage leads say, yeah, this fixes the issue, then SRC can approve it. So that like the division between SRC is responsible for like letting the thing go in, but sometimes they have to delegate to someone else to LGTM if it's not like something they can eyeball. Oh yeah, it's the same patch.
Yeah, there is a comment below that's highlighted currently because I don't think we quite got any consensus. So after you're done, we can get to it. It does talk about multiple contributors, like how many reviews or how many contributors would be required to relate it.
All right.
If you scroll down the highlighted section, I think that's the one place that we didn't quite get consensus on.
This.
Yeah. So the process is described as during embargo, CVE fixer would be the one that's providing the patches, right? And then after embargo, SRC member, if they have the patch, they will push the patch, right? And then tag the CVE fixer for review. But I think when it's not like I would say like the easy path or goal path, then it's like how many reviews do we need?
This is where sort of the SRC doesn't provide like reproducers of vulnerabilities really. Like if we had a reproducer, then we could take the patch, apply it, and then like say, oh yeah, this vulnerability is reproducible against 128 before I apply this, and when I apply this, I can no longer reproduce it. We're sort of depending on the fixer to like, verify this makes the CVE non-reproducible.
Right. Again, even now, that's the case. A lot of it is just manual.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we tend to add tests that narrowly, like we'll check one error condition or something, but it's not like an end-to-end reproducer test.
Yep.
Oh, that's a question actually. Would we expect these patch files to contain test content as well? I mean, ideally, that would be nice. Tests tend to be more conflict prone, minor to minor. Like maybe the specific change is like a nil check. That's the CVE fix. But then like a unit test or an integration test or an E2E test that verifies that might depend on a lot of like test infrastructure, setup, wiring stuff that churns a lot. So like pulling the bug fix back might be trivial. Taking a test written against 134 and just pulling it back might require basically rewriting the test if a lot of stuff churned since then in test.
That sounds like it raises the barrier of entry quite a bit to
Yeah.
be disincentivize something that we want, which is fixes.
Yeah. I mean, tests build confidence. If I was going to apply this patch, I would want there to be a unit test or any, like some kind of test to show me that it actually still is fixing the thing. So I wouldn't object to a test. We like if it includes tests that like build and the submitter can say like, see the unit test I ran it and it passed, great. If they say I pulled the fix back and the test that was in 134 didn't apply, had to be rewritten, I don't have time to rewrite it, but here's the fix, I think we'd probably still accept the fix. That's, I don't know, that's how I would claim. What do people think?
I'm just looking at old CVs to see. Yeah, usually we have both fix and test, as you would expect.
I mean, it varies, right? Like sometimes an EDE test that would verify the thing is effectively a CDE reproducer. We kind of tend not to provide like proof of concept.
Well, I think it's more for correctness rather than reproducibility.
Yeah, we usually, I mean, just good testing practice, we usually try to have a test at the lowest level possible that shows the bug and the fix. So if you can demonstrate that with a unit test, then great, do it as a unit test because it's faster and easier to write. If you can't and you need an integration test, like, okay. If you need an EDE test, okay. But we try to, I think, have the lowest level, simplest test that shows the bug and the fix. So maybe, what would we say? We would, like, whatever tests were added in the supported branches, like, if those pick back cleanly, then include them and show that they passed on the pick. If they don't pick back cleanly, then you can, the person doing the backport could try to deconflict them or fix them if they're able to and show that they pass. That would be ideal. If the tests are too much burden to pull back, like it's sort of a judgment call on the reviewer's part to say, how confident are we in this fix without the accompanying tests?
Okay. No, typically. How about the number of reviewers?
When you say should we request at least one more, local test, we're talking about somebody other than the PR submitter running some tests. Do we assume that SRC would run tests before accepting? Or
If the
I'm not sure
same
what SSRC
person
process is.
providing the fix for a supported minor is the one if it's the original fixer that's already like coordinating with SRC, I think we can accept I think we can accept that in good faith. If they weren't able to, and someone else maybe less known or less familiar with the area is the one volunteering to do the backport, then probably want someone like a second act. It doesn't have to be SRC. It could be, maybe that's the kind of thing where SRC tags in the area lead and says, someone offered to do this backport. Can you run their test and make sure like this did what they said it did? And like, I think a lot of this is just best effort. Like the more something is conflicting on the way back, and the more it's diverging, and the more tests are having to be rewritten, and the more scrutiny is required, and the more sig leads have to be tagged in, like, it's like the more effort is required, it's always possible, like, you know what, this is too different. We don't have time to go like chase this down for 3 more miners. So it's possible one will like not get merged if it diverged too much and was too different, and the people who had the expertise to say, yep, this is good, weren't available. That's always a possibility.
Mhm.
I don't think we want to try to come up with a perfect process that always succeeds, and until we do, like, hold out easy backports that didn't conflict. There's value.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering if we should explicitly say what you're saying here, like we may kind of use the, um, may do this language. Like
The lawyer.
we will do this, we may do this, and it will depend on, and then put like, judgment of SRC or something where I'm just kind of thinking if somebody comes and complains and says, why didn't you judgment of SRC? Something like that.
What's the word? Not it means possible. Prohibitive. What's the word? Feasible. Feasible. Yeah, so something like that. All right. Are there other things you wanted to get feedback on specifically or talk through?
I think I just changed the success metrics, or sorry, I remember changing implementate like phase 3 or phase 2. I think we had like, remember we used to have like volunteers, right? But now it's like, give me 1 second. I'm trying to remember what I did.
Do we already track the CVEs for the in support miners? I suspect we do.
Do we track CVs for in a life minor?
No. Currently,
Uh-huh.
the CVEs for in support miners.
Oh, yeah, we do. It's all in
Okay.
in issues tab with tags.
Okay. knowing how many CVEs did or did not have patches for the 3 next EOL miners. Like that's kind of like right now, it's all of them. All of them do not have fixes. Like the ideal would be we get 100% with very minimal effort. That would be the ideal. So somewhere between 0% and 100% of CVEs are fixed in all of the 3 recent EOL miners. Like knowing where we are on that spectrum would kind of tell us like how's this going? Like what kind of coverage are we getting? Do we want to do anything to, if we're already tracking CVEs per miner, if we don't have a CVE fix for a like most recent 3 EOL miner, do we want to make that discoverable in some way? So if you're looking at like 130 and you've got this patches folder, you can see, oh, this patches folder, fixes all of these CVEs. What CVEs are in current versions that aren't patched in 130? Like, what do I have to go deal with? I think that's more of a reporting thing than like we're not going to put files in the folder. But if I was running 130, the question I would have would be, what CVEs does it have? How can I fix those? I can apply this patches folder. Great, that takes care of these 10 CVEs. But there's these other 3 that for whatever reason, like there aren't patches available for them. So now I need to go figure out my own things for those. So I don't know if that's like a query on, I don't know if there's a way that someone could answer that question for themselves.
Mo, you've had your hand up for a while. I'm not sure if you wanted to weigh in on this or something else.
I'm sorry.
Mine's like different. So Jordan, finish your thought and stuff.
I don't know where that's more just like how are people going to use this? Like people who we expect to use this are doing their own builds of older miners, presumably because they care about resolving CVEs in them.
One thought I had was maybe, again, since the SRC handles all these, right? When there is a public CVE disclosed, we could update, say, the README with the new CVE and just leave it blank until we have the patch. That's one idea.
What I was going to ask is like, is SRC going to mark these versions as vulnerable when they file the CVE?
They're already marked as vulnerable, I think. Like with CVE, get a version range associated with them. It says like this CVE exists in these miners.
That's not how the scanners work, though.
Yeah,
scanners are brain dead.
No. CVEs have ranges attached to them. It says like
right.
from
No, but
10
that's
to
not what the scanners
130.
don't understand what their ranges actually mean, Jordan. Like
Okay,
we
so
say,
back to my
yes,
question,
everything
like,
before this.
could a user, like, I mean, scanners are one thing. I'll make them happy if I can, but mostly I care about users. Can a user answer the question, what CVEs does this miner have? And which of those CVEs are fixed by the patches in this folder? So
I would actually push back and say I don't think a folder of something that may or may not have gotten any updates to it is going to be the authoritative source of truth somebody would use to find out what vulnerabilities might currently at this moment exist in this version. I almost think you would have to have a different source of truth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, yeah. So
okay.
Query like CVE database or CVE feed or like,
right.
How do they find out?
But it's not something we would put in this repo necessarily.
Yeah, touching
people couldn't trust it
forever, always is not reasonable. Querying something somewhere to find out what CVEs does Kubernetes 130 have at head or 130.14 or what CVEs do I have, and then subtract from that the CVEs that are fixed by the patches in this folder. Like that's sort of my mental model, so that they then know well, I applied the 10 patches they gave me for 130, but I still have these others that I have to deal with myself or decide, it's time to upgrade. I'm not like, I think that's just more like usability. Like, how is someone going to use this in combination with some source of truth for what CVEs the miner has, so they know what they have to deal with themselves, or if they're happy with where they end up. All right, bunch of hands. I can't tell order in Zoom. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'll go, I guess. I think I'm gonna guess I was the first one, but I don't actually know. So Rita, it's been a while since you and I spoke about this doc, and I'll admit I haven't read it in a while, so I don't necessarily know how much you've changed since the last time we spoke. But I'm gathering from the conversation that it still has the general structure of there's an SRC maintained repo of patches somewhere. I am not. Do it.
Sorry, though.
Go ahead.
I think you joined a little late, but the only diff from this versus the first round is SRC will encourage the fixers, the CV fixer, to also include patches for the last 3 end of life versions. That's the big difference.
What did it say before that?
Before that, it's like community, like anyone, community volunteers can push a PR, and then SRC reviews the PR.
I see.
Like
Okay.
after it's public. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so like I am like I guess still skeptical of this whole repo idea. I am sort of I think in my head I was much more in favor of just when SRC sends emails out for patches and stuff that we include the patches for some UL versions if we have them, and leave it at that. And you can go look through the emails if you want to find the old patches because they're attached. I don't know if I want to like sign up to maintain a repo, basically, as an SRT person, because we're already sort of having a hard time keeping up with the stuff we're supposed to be doing. So
Got it.
good. Throw that out there, right? Like it's
That's very
like
valuable.
yes,
as we speak
SRT is the right place. Probably it's just not necessarily the most funded or functional place at this exact moment. So yeah, I'm just trying to be pragmatic, y'all. Just it's not really a I don't necessarily think it's like the wrong idea. I just want to make sure that the outcome is actually what we want.
That's really good feedback because you are representing part of SRC. So if you and others on the SRC don't feel like that's feasible or good use of our time, that's very, very valid. So it sounds like, just want to make sure I hear you right. So it sounds like you're okay with coordinating during the embargo period and sending out the end of life patches in the email during the embargo period, but beyond that, no, right?
Yeah, to me, that's like a better starting point. I'm not saying we can't work our way up to something more robust or like longer maintained or maybe more useful or whatever you want to think about it. But again, like this is, I mean, I'm one of what, like 9 people on SRC, right? The other 7 are missing or whatever. So they might have other opinions, or they might have, like, we might have someone on SRC that's very motivated by this and wants to sort of be the lead. Like that's the other aspect of SRC that I don't think is well structured for this stuff, which is that like we're all the same. Right? There's no like necessarily leadership within SRC, which also leads to like who owns what problems. So like if there was someone on the SRC that said like I'm very passionate about this and I want to make sure it's successful, then I'd be totally on board because then there is a point person who like drives the thing. So it's yeah, like it's not really a technical problem I'm pointing out. It's like a human problem.
And a point person is different than a single point of failure. I think often we confuse the two. Like one person is a champion for getting something spun up, but they're not necessarily saying, I will be the one to review every pull request to this repo for the rest of my life. Two comments on what Mo just said. Like, distinguishing between embargoed fixes and public fixes is weird to me. Like, whether we fix an issue under embargo and sort of send a pre-email out to distributors and include patches for older miners as part of that, or whether we fix a low or medium severity CVE in the open and send an email out. Do we send emails out for lower medium severity CVEs? I'm not sure, actually.
We don't do private.
We do.
Okay.
Sorry.
I mean,
sorry.
we don't send it to the distributors list ahead
We
of
send
time,
them
but
out.
we do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah,
for
we
the-
do still send it.
Like saying, does this backport cleanly 3 more miners? Great, include the fixes. Seems like something we would be okay with either way, and the people who are maintaining platforms and clusters 3 miners back that care about resolving every CVE would make use of those. Like, I don't really understand the distinction between embargo.
No, so I don't want to like maybe get stuck on that point. Like I'm totally fine. Like whenever we always send a public announcement for every CVE once it's like disclosed.
Okay.
In that email, we should attach every patch that we know at that moment.
Okay.
So that part's totally fine.
Okay.
So I don't want to get stuck on the distinction between like embargoed versus not. Like the part that's sort of relevant about embargo is really working in the private repo with collaborators and stuff, and that's like the part that's sort of relevant, not really the rest of it. Yeah. So some. Yeah. My point was more around like how can we reduce the amount of like new moving pieces that SRC now owns and has to babysit.
Do you think it will be easier to manage like review or tracking of patch files?
See, I don't want tracking of patch files. I just want to send out an email and say, all right, that's done now. If we didn't have a patch version and that, it doesn't matter in like a week if someone decides to show up. Like it was best effort at the time of announcement. And now we are done. Like we are done with that CVE now as the SRC.
I don't disagree with, like, I also think it will be more effort. It's inevitably more effort. And like, I don't object if people want to put in that effort, but I don't have time to do it. I'm not surprised if a lot of other people don't have time to do it. Yeah. Go ahead, read it. You can.
Yeah, I just want to mention, Mo, for what it's worth, I thought about just like exactly as you said, right? But one concern I have is like without persisting the patch file somewhere, let's say a new CV comes in and the fixer wants to provide a new patch, like how would we know for certainty that the new patch didn't like conflict with another CVE patch? Because there's no place where we're persisting these patch files, right? And also
Rita, you
because
don't
have
know
a,
that either.
I'm sorry, can I
guess you
finish?
Sorry.
Okay. And mainly because we don't persist the end of life like branches, right? So we don't have a place where all the patches are persisted. So that's my only concern. Sorry, go ahead.
So are you proposing as part of this doc that the patches would somehow then be applied to some branch as like CI or something to verify they don't conflict? Because having a set of patches in a folder also doesn't tell you anything about them conflicting, Rita. That's the part that I don't understand how we got here on this particular point.
Yeah,
Also,
we talked about a CI test that at minimum plays the patches against a branch and makes sure that like get apply star succeeds, and maybe even type checks, like something very minimal. It's not going to do unit tests. It's not going to do integration tests. It's not going to do EDE tests. Yeah, we don't want to run expensive CI jobs. We're fine with like a trivial like get apply type check. Like that takes 2 minutes and is a simple EDE job that takes very minimal resources. I don't think there was any concern about that level of CI, but we didn't want to spin up 12 pre-submits and run builds and EDEs and crazy stuff.
Okay. So yeah, I think that detail maybe it got lost to me since the last time I
Well,
thought
can
about
you-
this.
Well, let's talk about it. It's right. We're staring at it, testing process, right? The idea is that me as a fixer, right, I would check out a release branch and apply all the existing patches from this repo, make sure that's cleanly applied, and then I will apply my new patch. That
this-
will at least make sure it's applied cleanly, right?
This looks like a manual test, like checked out. It wasn't clear if this is something that a human is doing. Like I'm going to check this out and run these things and then copy paste my results back into the PR. I think for expensive tests like an integration test or an EDE test, that's probably what we would be doing. But the sanity check test of just, does this patch even apply? We had talked about like a simple automated pre-submit that would just do the most basic, does it apply cleanly and produce something that type checks. So maybe distinguishing that. Like I think this is a manual testing process for cases where we have EDEs or integration tests that we need to run.
Yeah, this is the manual. Like, if you look at CVE fixer testing requirements, right? This is, we would imagine the CVE fixer will go through this to create that new patch file, right? But then I think separately in a different section, as part of CI, we will do pretty much the same thing to validate the PR,
We would do,
to validate the PR can be applied cleanly.
yeah, I don't think we would run component specific tests as part of CI. So apply and build, like that's probably all we would have an automated pre-submit do.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think just circling back on this whole point though, right? Like I think having that capability is certainly I think a pro in the favor of having a repo with patches that we are trying to run some level of basic CI on to get a very high level, does this even work at all sense. So yeah, I'll admit that, that's totally fine. That's a pro in that favor. I just don't know if it's a big enough pro to get around the human factors of the extra work.
It feels like we have two things that are directly in tension. One is we're saying taking security patches back to older end-of-life miners. Like if there's no conflict, if they just pick back cleanly, this provides almost no value because someone who wanted that could just literally pick from the oldest in support miner back to their older miner. Like there's already a commit they could cherry pick back, right? So if it picks back cleanly, this doesn't provide value really, other than maybe just gathering the changes. But you could do the same thing with just a list of the SHAs in the email that gets sent out. Here's the 131 SHA. Cherry pick this into your branch. If there are conflicts and the patch has to be deconflicted and maybe rewritten, then it's actually going to require decent amounts of effort from the fixer and decent amounts of effort from the reviewer. And SRC may or may not have the bandwidth, may or may not have the expertise. And so kind of the only scenario where this provides value is the scenario where it's going to take a lot of effort. And that's where Mo is saying, I don't want to sign up for reviewing more things for another year of end-of-life miners. It feels like those two things are in conflict, and I don't know how to reconcile those. Like the scenarios where it provides value are the scenarios where it's going to take effort and time that we're not sure we have.
Yes, I agree with what Jordan just said.
Like
I don't have any further comments.
If we have a repo and a folder and a process, and it's like if fixers want to provide it, great. And if SRC members have time and want to review it, great. But I think either of them have to be free to say, I don't have time to backport and deconflict more, or I don't have time to review and test. And like, I want to make sure that by setting this up, we're not obligating fixers to support EOL versions, and we're not obligating SRC members to support EOL versions by dedicating review time to gnarly backports to those. Like if it happens, great, I guess. If it doesn't happen, we're not gonna like frown at people and say, you didn't support this process we set up. Like I think that's evidence that people didn't have time, and I think that's okay actually.
But you're also discussing a vacuum, right? Like in some cases, those of us who, run clouds or whatever, will do the backport anyway. So if somebody has it, they might decide to put it out here and help people with it. I mean, maybe that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, like I don't object to there being the possibility, but just because there's a repo, just because you can open a PR there, doesn't mean that it's definitely going to get reviewed and merged if the person on the SRC side doesn't have time. Like it might languish, it might not get merged if there's not time and bandwidth.
Feels like there's a decision between, is this purely community driven or is SRC in the center of all this? And if SRC doesn't have a lot of time.
Well, my only feedback here is if it's not the embargoed or medium low public CV patch that we get from like the time we're dealing with the CV, there's less value in this. That's my only point. So either we do it because we see the value and we have people who's willing to spend the time, or we don't do it at all. Mo?
I was thinking back to what Jordan said earlier about like SRC would be like approvers on this repo. Would we entertain the idea of perhaps, I don't know, making every SIG lead an approver and just trusting our leads and SRC to do the right thing and not merge a patch that they don't understand? Like, I feel like even if everything goes right, if like the approved step is like on SRC, like I feel like that still creates a significant bottleneck to like 10-ish people. So I'm just throwing it out there. Like if we're gonna have a repo with a Prow style process, and it's all gonna be best effort, we're gonna probably need like a big pool of people. And like yes, a mistake could slip through and the whole thing was best effort anyway, so maybe that's okay.
I think you have a good point about SIG leads, because SIG leads are, not going to choose to sign off on something that's not their area, that they don't understand.
In terms of intent, I agree. I think people are trained to eyeball things and then LGTM approve and trust CI to protect. So if this repo doesn't have extensive CI to protect, that could be fine, but coming up with a way to help people who have approve on the repo understand that no, you actually need to, there needs to be verification of that this did what it said it did. So there's ways to do that. You could require like the description have like a testing block that shows the output of the how this was verified or something. Like there's ways to kind of do that in an automatic, lightweight way. Kind of automatically delegating to SIG leads seems like it could be reasonable. We need to explain how they interact with changes pushed here, like, and if people outside SRC are approving stuff, we probably want to have a little more enforcement around, like, you're not merging stuff to random folders, like you're only merging patches to the most recent three miners. Like some of the things that if it's a small group of people in SRC who understand what this repo is, we could just count on them to like not approve stuff that doesn't make sense. But if you're going to open it up to 40 SIG leads, they probably aren't familiar with this repo, and so we want automation to guide them to do the right thing in terms of where are we merging patches and what do you need to verify before you merge a patch. Yeah. I don't hate the idea of SIG leads having approve on it, as long as we make sure they understand what this is.
Then we need to get buy-ins from every single SIG. That's why I'm saying this proposal. The reason we started with SRC is because we're like, okay, then we just need to get buy-ins from SRC. Now, if you're saying it's gonna auto delegate to all the SIGs, then SIG leads, then we have to get buy-ins from all of them, right?
No, like they have the ability to approve, but they don't have the obligation to approve.
But this proposal touches, like, I would think we need to work with them, right? Make sure they are.
Communication for sure, but there's no obligation. Like if someone wants to backport a storage CVE fix and storage leads are like, we're not going to give this attention. That, I don't think that's a problem. You're just widening the pool of people who might have motivation and time and ability to review a change. Go ahead, Mo.
Yeah, I think I was just gonna agree with what you were saying, Jordan. It's to me, it's not about we're not asking them to change any of their process, right? Like if they basically choose to ignore this repo, which is like the default of what would happen if they weren't paying attention, nothing bad happens, right? I do think the SRC would need to communicate, potentially through like our normal channels, probably at like maintainer summit / like maybe even maintainer track at a KubeCon or two to like just help the leads from the various geos get a sense of what it is there. And then that'd be like a one-time commitment on the SRC part to get stuff recorded and available where we can link it out and stuff. But yeah, I don't think we're asking them to change any of their process, right? Like I can approve like any test in KK, but I do not approve anything that's out of auth because I don't know what the test is doing and I'm just not going to approve it. Even if the bot sometime tags me, I'm just like, oh, it's not, go away, like unassigned, I don't know this area. But in this case, I don't expect like, we might need the prow bot not to nag people. I forget because I think it'll try to make up an approver from the list.
So in terms of like SRC process involvement, like when SRC is coordinating fix, they can still ask the fixer, like, does this pick back to the last three miners? If so, great, we have patch files. At the same time we send the email, we can drop those in a PR to these folders. If they don't have those patches at the time of the announcement, then like SRC is kind of out of the loop then. SRC is done coordinating the fixes for this thing. If someone shows up later from someone who runs their own clusters, or community member shows up later and opens a PR, like this CVE didn't have a patch in this folder, like the automation should catch things like you're patching stuff beyond the 3. Sorry, but no. And then otherwise, like any SIG lead has the power to review and approve that. And they should understand their responsibilities if they choose to review and approve that. But that kind of gets SRC off the hook for being responsible for continuing to coordinate and be in the middle of that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. To the question in chat, I mean, we have done that in the past at times, but usually it basically means that we couldn't come up with any non-breaking change that wasn't like catastrophic. Like some of the recent networking stuff comes to mind where like we would just break everyone's clusters if we just pushed out some fix. So we basically said, here's a CVE, here's a KEP that tries to address the CVE with a bunch of knobs, and please go configure your cluster until you're happy.
So I kind of like the boundary point. Like after SRC announces the thing, SRC's responsibilities for coordinating are done. And if there were patches for older miners that happened to be available at that point, dropping those into a PR to the repo seems fine to like close out that coordination. If there weren't, then it's on the community to provide them and review them. And SRC, I mean, SRC members are certainly willing to do it if they are motivated to, but they're not obligated to. Like the process doesn't route things through them at that point. Is that a helpful clarification or expansion? Do we think that that improves the chances of like community driven being successful? I think it does.
Can you just review the in the chat if this is like a good summary of what you're proposing?
I think that's right. See, provide patches. If the patches are available at the time of the announcement, then SRC will, you know, I guess the fixer opens the pull requests to Kubernetes. So the fixer would also open the pull requests to drop the patch files in. So whoever opens the KK PRs would also open the patch folder PR if the patches were available during the CVE process.
Yeah.
All right. We are over time. Thank you, Bridget. I think that's a helpful way to split it. Maybe let's update that and then think about how to communicate that, how we would communicate that with Sue, please. All right. I'm going to stop the recording there.